I'm going to talk about the male reproductive system and their parts and how they work. First is the penis. It's the one that acts as a conduit for urine to leave the body. Second is the testes. They produce gametes or sperm and they secrete hormones, primarily testosterone. There is the scrotum. It contains the testicles and it acts as a climate control system of the testes. The vas deferens. It transports mature sperm to the urethra and the tube that carries urine or sperm to outside of the body in preparation for ejaculation. The epididymis. It transports and stores sperm cells that are produced in the testes. It also brings the sperm to maturity. The bulbourethral glands. These glands produce a clear, slippery fluid that empties directly into the urethra. This fluid serves to lubricate the urethra and to neutralize the acidity. The prostate gland. The prostate gland contributes additional fluid to the ejaculate. Prostate fluids also help to nourish the sperm. And the seminal vesicles. The seminal vesicles produce fructose that provides sperm with a source of energy to help them move. When ejaculation occurs, sperm is forcefully expelled from the tail of the epididymis into the deferent duct. Sperm then travels through the deferent duct up the spermatic cord into the pelvic cavity, over the ureter to the prostate behind the bladder. Here, the vas deferens joins with the seminal vesicle to form the ejaculatory duct, which passes through the prostate and empties into the urethra. When ejaculation occurs, rhythmic muscle movements propel the sperm forward. At the onset of puberty, the hypothalamus begins secreting high pulses of GnRH, or gonadotropin-releasing hormone. In response, the pituitary gland releases follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone into the male system for the first time. FSH enters the testes, stimulating the Sertoli cells. Then LH also enters the testes, stimulating the interstitial cells called Leydig cells to make and release testosterone into the testes and the blood.
So here we have the reproductive system of a human female. The main parts are the uterine or fallopian tube, the ovary, the urinary bladder, the corpus or body of the uterus, the urethra, the vagina, the cervix, and the rectum. So where an oocyte is produced and how it is transported to the uterus? Well, the virus produces the egg cells, called the ova or oocytes. The oocytes are transported to the fallopian tube, where the fertilization by a sperm may occur. The fertilized egg then moves to the uterus, where the uterine lining has thickened in response to the normal hormones of reproductive cycle. Where fertilization and implantation takes place? Well, many think fertilization occurs in the ovary. It actually takes place in the fallopian tube, just outside the ovary. The fertilized egg will attach itself to the lining of your uterus. About 1/3 of women will have some bleeding when implantation takes place. The major components of the female external genitalia. The female external genitalia consist of clitoris, mons pubis, prepuce, labia minora, labia majora, urethra orifice, and vagina. I'm going to explain the structure and function of each organ of the female reproductive system, as I already mentioned all of them in the past slides. Well, first the fallopian tube, also called oviduct or uterine tube, either of a pair of long narrow ducts located in the human female abdominal cavity that transports male sperms to the egg. The urinary bladder is a muscular sac in the pelvis, just above behind the pubic bone, When empty, the bladder is about the size and shape of a pear. The bladder stores urine, allowing urination to be infrequent and controlled. Next is the ovary. It's a ductless reproductive gland in which the female reproductive cells are produced. Then the uterus. Functions may include nurturing the fertilized ovum that develops into the fetus and holding it till the baby is mature enough for birth. The uterus provides structural integrity and support to the bladder, bowel, pelvic bones, and organs as well. The next organ that I'm going to explain is the urethra. This is a duct that transmits urine from the bladder to the exterior of the body during urination. Then the vagina. This receives the penis during sexual intercourse and also serves as conduit for menstrual flow from the uterus. Then is the cervix. It allows flow of menstrual blood from the uterus into the vagina and direct the sperms into uterus during intercourse. Then is the rectum. Follows the shape of a scarm and ends in an expanded section called the rectal ampulla, where feces are stored before their release via the anal canal. The next organ is the mons pubis, that is a rounded mound of fatty tissue that covers the pubic bone. Next is the clitoris. It's a small projection of erectile tissue in the vulva of the female reproductive system. It contains thousands of nerve endings that make it an extremely sensitive organ. Next is the labia minora, a pair of thin cutaneous folds that are formed part of the vulva or external female genitalia. They function as protective structure that surrounds the clitoris, urinary orifice, and vaginal orifice. Then finally is the labia majora, that are a pair of rounded folds of skin and adipose that are part of the external female genitalia. Their function is to cover and protect the inner, more delicate and sensitive structures of the vulva, such as the labia minora, clitoris, urinary orifice, and vaginal orifice. In this slide, we can see the hypothalamus and pituitary gland. And we have their parts: the anterior pituitary, pars superiorlis, pars intermedia, and pars distalis, and the posterior pituitary, infundibular stalk, and pars nervosa. And there we have the hypothalamus right up of the pituitary glands. Now, I'm going to explain the hormonal regulation of the female reproductive system. Regulation of the reproductive system is a process that requires the action of hormones from the pituitary gland, the adrenal cortex, and the gonads. During puberty in both male and females, the hypothalamus produces gonadotropin releasing hormone, which stimulates the production and release of follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone from the thyroid pituitary gland. These hormones regulate the gonads, testes in males and ovaries in females, and therefore are called gonadotropins. In both male and females, FSH stimulates gamete production and LH stimulates production of hormones by gonads. An increase in gonad hormone levels inhibits GnRH production through a negative feedback loop. Then is the ovarian cycle. The ovarian cycle governs the preparation of endocrine tissue and release of egg, while the menstrual cycle governs the preparation and maintenance of the uterine lining. These cycles occur currently and coordinated over a 22 to 32 day cycle with an average length of 28 days. Then is the uterine cycle. The early proliferative phase of the uterine cycle begins at the end of the menstrual flow. Uterine glands in this phase are sparse and relatively small, and the epithelial cells develop microvilli and cilia under the influence of estrogen. The late proliferative phase reveals and increases thickness of the stratum functionalism, and the glands are more coiled and densely packaged. The secretory phase of the uterine cycle begins at ovulation. In this phase, the glands become even more complexly coiled and the endometrial lining reaches its maximal thickness, whereas the stratum basial and myometrium remain relatively unchanged. Note the sock-toothed appearance of the glands. Secretion, rich in glycogen and glycoprotein, can be observed in the lumina of the glands. If fertilization does not occur, the placenta tissue does not produce HCG, and the corpus luteum degenerates. Uterine lining does not receive the progesterone, causing these spiral arteries constrict and the endometrial tissue to become ischemic. This causes cell death and the slowing of the stratum functionalism, which hormone governs the constriction of the glandular uterine lining during proliferative phase. And that will be the end of our video. Thanks for watching and see you next time.